Hello everyone, this is Sajid again from Discover Co-working. With me, I have today the two co-founders of Chisel, a co-working space in McLean, Virginia. They are focused primarily on lawyers, and from our research, what we think is they are the first of a co-working space that is focused solely on lawyers. However, I could be wrong, and we're going to find out. With that, Francis, or have I?
France
and Tom. Sorry, I mixed it up. So please tell us, how did you start? Did you know each other? What brought you to co-working? Why co-working? It's a very new concept. So how did you start, or what happened?
Well, we were partners together in a law firm. So we have a law firm, FH&H. And it's a law firm that is a very entrepreneurial bent. Most of our clients are entrepreneurs, and we sort of focus on that mid-market entrepreneur for a wide range of legal support. And part of what differentiates us, we think, from other firms is that our lawyers are also entrepreneurial. We tend to be lawyers that have come from large firm environments or the government and want to get out and strike out on their own and build their own practice in an entrepreneurial way. So the firm itself is always looking for new entrepreneurial ventures and new ways to do things and do business. So when we were moving to new space, we wanted to get a larger space than we need, so we have room for growth. But then we had this question of how do we monetize the extra space, and so we thought of co-working, and we thought that the particular spin that we can provide in co-working is to provide a space that is really tailored to the lawyer.
Right, because the lawyers have different needs than other types of co-workers,
yes.
Right? Because lawyers are subject to legal, ethical rules and guidelines. They have a greater need for client confidentiality, for the handling of privileged documents. They just need to be resourced differently. And
yes.
I have worked out of a number of co-working spaces over the years. And while I make it work, it's not ideal. And so as we were setting up a co-working space here, specifically designed for lawyers, we thought that we could really make it something value add by tailoring the space just for lawyers.
And actually, you touched on my second question, which was, how did you come across the term co-working? Because not many people know the term, right? They know that we need something shared, and but you kind of used it, so you knew that it's called co-working, and you kind of so it was your brainchild, and you convinced him that hey, we should do this, or was it?
It was really Francis' brainchild.
Okay, cool. And walk us through the journey. I mean, how has it been? Okay, so you decided you wanted to open co-working, and it's easy to say that, but however, there's a lot of challenge, right? Mm-hmm. Ups and downs, things like that. If you could share in terms of what your lesson has been. And
so the first thing we did is we surveyed all the co-working spaces we could find that cater to lawyers across the United States. There's only a handful. I think there's more every month, but at the time when we opened this up a little less than a year ago, there's only 5 or 6. And we took a look at their models. We also took a look at other co-working spaces in the DC area. As you well know, DC has become a mecca for co-working. There's over 100 co-working spaces. And one of the trends we've noticed is that co-working spaces are becoming specialized, right? There's a co-working space just for women, HERA. There's a co-working space just for government contractors.
Yes.
Eastern Foundry, there's a co-working space focused on largely veterans.
Yes.
Capital Post. And I happen to know a lot of those folks. So I went out and talked to my own contacts, as well as spending time in those other co-working spaces and asking ourselves what here works and would apply to a legal co-working space, and what doesn't work, and what needs to be specialized. And then I had a number of conversations with my fellow partners, and with Tom, who is the managing partner of the firm, and Joel Westfall, who's our director of client relations and really the executive director who run the firm day to day, and asked him, gosh, how do we create something that works for these other lawyers?
Right, and so I think my impression, just anecdotally, I don't, you may have hard data on this since you do this, is that lawyers are slow adopters in co-working. And so we thought about why is that, and some of the things that France mentioned, which is that they need a certain amount of security. They want the confidence that the people working around them have similar ethical obligations to their own, and things of that nature. So we thought about, so I guess from two perspectives. One is like, how can we use this space that we already have in a way that's not disruptive to the other people working there, which is us, which is the law firm, and what can we provide the lawyer looking for co-working that he might not find somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so the second one was easier once we really started going out and talking to people and looking at other co-working spaces. So what we provide, the main thing we provide that's different than other co-working spaces is just the knowledge that everyone else who works here is also a lawyer. So that engages a whole host of professional responsibilities so that the lawyer can be comfortable. So for example, if a lawyer were to inadvertently overhear a conversation that he knew was a privileged conversation, he has an ethical obligation to try not to overhear that and to keep whatever he may learn confidential. And we buttress that by asking our coworkers to sign agreements to that effect. So a lawyer takes confidence in the fact that these other people are also lawyers with similar ethical obligations. So that was the most important thing, that everyone here is lawyers. But then we also did little things, like we provide secure shredding. So in each of our print rooms and work rooms, there was a locked box where you can put material in there to be shredded, and it's shredded by an outside vendor. So no one here can see that. And so you have confidence that your confidential material will be treated confidentially. Similarly, our printers are all secure printers, and what that means is when you hit print on your laptop, the document doesn't come out of the printer until you walk to it and type your code into the printer. So you can print your legal documents in a shared environment with confidence that no one else is going to pick them up off the printer or even see them. You can go to the printer and stand there and watch them print. And so it was little things like that were enhancements that we added. We have a lot of conference room space here. We have private telephone rooms and things like that, so that even if you're working on a shared desk, there's somewhere that you can go to have a private conversation.
Yeah, and we made the decision to open the co-working space while we were planning the build out of this space. So we signed a long lease. We're consolidating multiple offices that we had in the DC area to this one location, and so we really planned the co-working space at the same time we were planning the move of the law firm and the build out. So everything you see here, this entire space, was built from the ground floor, literally, with co-working co-located with the law firm in mind. So every piece of furniture, every outlet, every wall is placed there by design. So we got the benefit of planning it from scratch and executing it, from day one the way we wanted, which is a huge benefit.
Absolutely. So just to make sure, so you basically did your research and then you found a space that will fit your what you try to do, which is co-working, versus what some people try to do was they will have a space and then they try to shoehorn or retrofit and say,
No, we purpose built.
Yeah, we purpose built. There's, like he's mentioned, telephone rooms, and there's an open space for events. It's a cafe, kitchen, event, dining, networking space that we call the Forge, which is huge and accommodating. We've had up to 150 people here for events, and we have events probably on average once, many times twice a week in that space.
Yeah, about once a week, maybe a little more. We'll have events we have our own small event space here, and we'll have events there, and that there's synergies there for the coworkers as well. We'll teach we'll have an attorney teach our class on unemployment law, for example. We'll use that as a venue to invite current and potential clients to listen to it, and then the coworkers, the chiselers we call them, they can also come to those same events, use the same networking opportunities, and also maybe sit and learn something if that's not an area of law that they're proficient in.
And that's not typical for a law firm to have, right? We've got storage lockers. We've got a separate mail room. We will do a mail service. We'll open and scan the mail and send it to our members who maybe are virtual and only come in once a month or whatever. We've got shared workspace that has different types. There's standing desks, there's sitting desks, there's desks in quiet areas, there's desks in active areas, because different people work in different ways, and we wanted to provide options to accommodate every type of style of worker. So these are the kind of things that we were trying to be thoughtful and are only possible if you design a space from day one. It's hard to retrofit a space to have telephone rooms, for example. They're either there or they're not.
Yes. Or you're putting up a telephone booth in the hallway, right? And you know it was kind of an afterthought versus something that's been built into the whole design. Now, with events, and probably, with events, I mean, does that create any kind of, what type of events? And number two is, does it create like a noise issue, or, does it... How do you
this
balance
has,
that?
frankly, been one of our concerns, right? So the events can be a distraction, and there's a couple different ways that we handle that. One is that we have one side of the office that we call the quiet side, and another side which we call the active side. And the idea is that if you are the kind of person that cannot work around any kind of distraction, which some lawyers are very bookish and they're like that, then move your office to the quiet side. And the other is that the events, with some exceptions, we plan the events either around lunch or at sort of a happy hour time, so that minimizes the impact on the rest of the office. So some of the events are quite small. It might be someone giving a talk and there's 10 people there. We've had up to 150 people. So if you have 100 people here, generally that's something we'll have to close the office for an afternoon for. So there is some impact on both other coworkers and on the lawyers from the firm who share the same space. But we have been pretty successful, I think, in working around those impacts and sort of maximizing the benefit to both groups.
And is it events only for your members, or is it for outsiders, or what kind of events? How do you curate it, and how do you decide?
Both. So some of our events are open to everybody. Some events are only open to the members. The physical logistical support that we provide is just one half the equation. The other half is the opportunity to attend these events, have access to the Chisel network,
yes,
and to network and to have develop professional relationships with the other members of Chisel as well as the members of the FH&H firm. And that is the other side of a co-working space, right? And what makes a co-working space just for lawyers attractive, because lawyers, when they come here, know that everybody else in the space is an entrepreneurial lawyer, someone they can learn from, learn with, do business with, refer business to, and there's tremendous value in that too.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but along the same lines, has there been an issue with conflict of interest? So, for example,
mm-hmm.
you are an immigration lawyer. He's also an immigration lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, or how have you managed that?
Well, we've never had a conflict problem.
Yes.
But we would manage that in the same way we would manage any other conflict. Lawyers have shared offices with one another for forever, and so the Chiselers, from an ethical standpoint, the Chiselers who work in the same space are not affiliated with one another. So there isn't an issue. There's no ethical professional bar to them working together. What they have to do is be careful about confidentiality and security of information, and that's why we have all these other things in place that we've already discussed. So there's secure printing, secure networking, and shredding services and things like that. So it is not inconceivable that some issue would arise, but none has in the year that we've been doing it. And I'm confident that if something did, we'd be able to manage it just as a law firm manages its own conflicts.
Cool. And I should have asked this earlier, which is why the name Chisel, and what's the background story?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah, so Chisel is a slang term for a group of lawyers.
Okay.
And we just thought it sounded great.
Yeah.
Cool. And in terms of marketing and getting the word out, what has worked, or how are people finding you, or your potential members finding you? And can you share some of the ideas or what has worked for you?
Well, it's been a combination of social media marketing, and sort of traditional word of mouth.
Yeah, some online
networking,
advertisements.
a little bit of online advertising. And I would say that that both have worked. We have attracted members through social media response, through our note. We have a newsletter that the firm operates that has a pretty good reach in the local legal community. Some targeted online advertising, but we've probably done about as well with simply word of mouth and networking. We try to make sure our network knows everything we're doing, and through that network, we've generated members that way too.
And what made you choose Tysons over DC? Because, like you said, DC has more co-working spaces. It's all.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's like all good questions, the answer is somewhat complex. We already had an office here in Tyson, so before we moved here, we had multiple offices. We had an office further south of here, which was frankly nearer to where some of the partners lived, and we had an office here in Tysons, and we found that we were more and more being drawn to the Tysons area. A lot of our clients are sort of arrayed between here and sort of west into the Dulles Chantilly area, and so there was a geographic nexus for us. But also Tysons, I think is a vibrant, is growing. As I'm looking out the window, I see the bunch of cranes and stuff. Right, it's a vibrant and growing area. Where the downtown area, while great in many ways, is a little bit more old school state area. And this is a little bit more vibrant entrepreneurial area. So we preferred it out here.
Okay. And any success stories or impact stories that you can share, like how your Chisel has actually helped start a law practice that would probably otherwise be struggling, because I would imagine a lawyer who's starting up would probably need a lot of infrastructure, which you're providing at a very affordable rate, right? Secure printing, even I think if you have your own practice, but still commercial real estate can be expensive.
Absolutely.
So anything you can share with us, like how Chisel has actually helped start something or an impact?
Well, I think we're seeing some impacts. I mean, it's early days. We've been here about a year, and we have had an interesting mix. So we have had some sort of young lawyers who are kind of starting out. But I think a more prototypical of our members, at least so far, have been relatively experienced attorneys who are still young at least to me, guys in their like 40, who are looking to maybe were with a firm or in a house at a corporation and looking to strike out on their own. And so we've had a handful of those. We've had one attorney who used Chisel sort of as a transition piece. He had his own practice. It had grown to the point where he wasn't manageable from his home, and he worked with us for some time, and he's going to be leaving us soon to go into a large firm, which is buying his practice. So we've seen that, where it's a sort of a temporary transitional space for 6 months for someone. We've seen folks come here to sort of start up their practice.
Yeah.
But we're still really learning how it can best, I mean, only a year in, we're still sort of learning how it can best impact. But one of the things that has surprised me is I thought it would be mostly young people, mostly sort of 28-year-olds or whatever. But it's not been the case. I mean, what would you think the average age of a chiseler is?
Late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, probably around 40. Yeah.
Well, so a couple other interesting groups. One is attorneys who work at other firms who just want a space closer to home. So they use Chisel as a second office, which is kind of an interesting concept when you not think of that initially. And I think the most surprising group is the lawyer entrepreneur who's a lawyer part-time and an entrepreneur part-time doing something else. And they like the flexibility to be able to practice their law here as well as pursue their other entrepreneurial venture. And so they base out of Chisel for both their ventures. Mm-hmm. And so we're seeing that.
A few of those, yeah.
Oh, cool, nice. Initially I thought you'd mention something like very young lawyers, right? Someone who's fresh or finished a law degree or got admitted to the bar and saying I want to start out my practice. But it sounds like it's the other way, which is like someone who's looking to do something on their own or needs a second place.
Yeah, and that may be driven partially or maybe entirely by location. I think if we were based in DC, we probably would attract younger lawyers, right? I think the kind of lawyers that practice out of Tysons for the most part are
more corporate, more
senior, more experienced lawyers, or tend to be lawyers who live out here, have practiced in DC. Now that they're starting their own practice, they want to base out of someplace that doesn't involve a 45-minute commute in the morning. And so Chisel, by geography, is much more convenient for a Northern Virginia, home-based lawyer.
Yes, cool. And when you send out this newsletter, I mean, what kind of information do you usually put in? Like, what's happening in the community?
No, I mean, the newsletter I was referring to I was talking about the firm's newsletter, which has been part of our marketing reach, which talks about all the things that the firm is doing. Internally to Chisel, we communicate within the Chisel community in a variety of other means. Yeah, the email some forums.
Yeah, we're built on the Nexodus platform, which you're probably familiar
Yes.
with. So and we found that been tremendously useful. I mean, it saves us so much time and energy. And we use the social media platform and tools and messaging tools built into Nexodus.
And when you chose Nexodus, or before you chose Nexodus, I mean, did you look at other platforms as well? And then Nexodus came out. Is there a particular feature in Nexodus that really says we must have it and we must go with this?
We were looking for something where it was just a one-stop.
Okay.
We didn't want to have to rely on a couple of different platforms, and it was Nexodus, and I forgot the other major platform. There's kind of two, right, that
Okay.
are most widely adopted. And frankly, the customer service in Nexodus was amazing. Like we literally sent them the deck on Chisel, and they just set everything up in the system for free.
Yeah.
Like configured everything for us.
Yeah.
We were just blown away.
Yeah,
by
they were
that.
easy to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Adrian from Nexodus, he's one of the founders, and he's a very nice person as well.
Yeah.
Cool. What's next? Now that you are 1 year into the operations, have you thought of next, or what you're thinking in terms of expanding Chisel into other locations, or is that something top secret you cannot share?
Yeah. We have the ability to expand. Actually, we have the option to expand even in this space, and have thought about expanding other spaces. But really want to nail down the model here. We're continuing to experiment with, membership plans, membership features. We introduced a virtual membership. We introduced a mailbox owning membership. We're introducing a punch card membership. We've tried free co-working week. We're continuing to experiment to see what best meets the needs of our community, and gathering data still.
Yeah, and expansion is a possibility. And so, if you recall from the story I told, this really started as a way to monetize space that we wanted to lock up in a lease and didn't really need immediately. And so, from a business model, that's provided us with phenomenal flexibility, right? Because we don't need Chisel necessarily to make, frankly, generate a ton of cash in order to make it be monetarily worthwhile. This is monetizing excess space. So expansion is a possibility, but as Fran said, we're still really nailing down some of the things. One of the things, he mentioned the mail service that we didn't think of before, is that a lot of lawyers, we're very interested in this service where we will open your mail, scan it, and email it to you. And so they don't have to come to the office every day. And that's been something that we didn't think of that lawyers wanted. And so we're still sort of sorting out the offering list, I guess, and what kind of packages are helpful. We're developing some purpose-built packages for lawyers. Like we recently came out with this deposition package where if you have to take or defend a deposition, we give you a package deal where you get this conference room, the main conference room for the deposition. You get a breakout room for the witness. You get certain services bundled together that are lawyer specific. So we're continuing to develop our offering set, and I think expansion is a possibility. We're excited to see where it goes.
Cool. Have you thought of providing, or have your members ever requested hey, we are starting out, can you guys give us some marketing assistance, or can you market us on our behalf, or hire other recruitment services?
Right, we don't market our per se market, but they have access to each other and us as a network. And so what we do for the coworkers, for the chiselers, is we find that the network has been very helpful to a lot of them. We certainly cross-refer clients. We have a diverse group, so we have, for example, Chiseler right now who writes complex wills. We in the firm don't do complex wills. We do simple wills, but not complex estate planning. And so it's a built-in sort of natural referral. You don't have to go looking for someone to send your client to when you have someone right here that you already know that you can refer them to. So cross-referring and just sort of networking has been the principal way, but we don't formally market them.
Yeah, we're so a couple things. We're pretty careful to only provide those services, and we're careful not to provide the kind of services that under the bar rules would result in the lawyers in Chisel being affiliated with the law firm under the ethical rules.
Okay.
Because if you start doing certain things for other lawyers, the bar may consider those lawyers part of your firm.
Okay.
And everybody, we're very clear here, each lawyer is their own independent entity, right? And we've got to be clear about those lines. But we do keep a list of, for example, preferred vendors. And when people ask, like, I need marketing assistance, we have a list of folks we can refer them to. We gather that information up from our lawyers and from the Chisel members and make it widely available to everybody. And we try to, like Tom said, encourage networking among the lawyers and referral back and forth.
Okay, great. I guess this brings me to my last question, which would be, if you have to redo this whole thing again, rebuild Chisel from the ground up, or knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, or what would be your advice to someone who's thinking of doing a co-working space? Like, do this or don't do that, stay away.
I don't know. I don't know what I would do differently. I think that obviously some of the product offerings that we didn't think of in the beginning, we would institute sooner. I think that I would aim our marketing somewhat differently because, as I said, we are finding that it's not young starting out folks that are really interested. It's established lawyers that want to work in a different way that are most interested in what we have. And so I might re-aim our marketing in that way.
Yeah.
What else?
Anything you want to add, or?
The only major change we made, and it's very minor, is we had not enough tables in the conference rooms, and we reconfigured so that there could be more
We
seating.
did change the
covered.
tables.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Everything else has been pretty consistent with the original design.
Yeah. And I think my advice to someone who is starting a co-working space, especially one that was aimed at a particular profession or group, would be exactly that, to purpose build your space and to give a lot of thought up front to what will these folks need to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And that's what we tried to do here.
Yeah.
And I think trying to shoehorn those requirements in an existing space, as you noted earlier, is very, very difficult.
Just one last question. I did say last, and now something come up because I really had to ask this, which was conference rooms. I know lawyers, they need a conference room. Almost everyone has a client that they want to sit quietly. So how did you come up with the numbers, the ratios? Was that something, I guess you come with the practice, experience.
Yeah.
Did that really help, or something
we built in 5 conference rooms, really 3 conference rooms and 2 kind of work rooms, but the work rooms could be used as conference rooms. And then we have a quiet room that could also be converted to a conference room. So kind of back to what Tom said, when you build a space, you want to build it purpose-built for your expected users, right?
Yes.
But you want to keep it as flexible as possible.
Yes.
So if we were off on conference rooms, the conference rooms could also be converted to offices. Some of the offices could also be converted to conference rooms. All the offices are the same size. So we felt if we needed more, we would just take 2 offices and turn them into conference rooms. If we needed less, we would convert the existing offices or existing conference room into offices. So just if you build it flexible, then you don't have to get it right.
Right.
Because experience is going to teach you whether you're right or wrong.
Right.
That's right. And we had a lot of discussions about how many conferences we should have, and we ended up at 5. But as Fran said, 4 of the 5, all of them but this one, could be converted to offices. So it's that flexibility in design, and that's something else we thought about a lot in the design process. Well, what will we do with this room if that doesn't work? Right? What else could it be?
Very nice thinking. With that, we conclude our interview. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And whoever is listening or watching or reading, please, if you're in the Tysons area, come visit Chisel. Obviously, and if you're a lawyer looking to move out of state, I'm not sure if you had that or not, but Chisel is a one-stop shop. You can actually land here, start from here, and go from there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you,
Thank you.
friends.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Tom. Bye.